It didn't arrive with the wail of air raid sirens. It didn't tear through the streets like a flood or shatter the skyline like a bomb. It simply crept under the cracks of the doors. It settled into the lungs of sleeping children. It tasted like raw metal and old ash. In December 1952, the greatest city in the world didn't just go blind. It suffocated on its own breath before the sun would pierce the sky again. 12,000 people would be dead, and the most terrifying part, for the first 3 days, they simply thought it was just the weather. Winter in post-war London was a bitter, bone-chilling thing. It was 1952. The scars of the Blitz were still visible in rubble. The British Empire was bankrupt, rationing enforced, and its people were desperately cold. To pay off crippling war debts, the government exported its highest quality, clean-burning coal abroad. This fatal decision left Londoners with what was colloquially known as nutty slack, a cheap, crumbly, low-grade coal. It barely produced heat, but when burned, it poured thick. Toxic sulfur dioxide and heavy soot directly into the air. But to the millions of weary Londoners, the sight of smoke billowing from a million brick chimneys meant warmth. It meant survival in a harsh era. No one looked up at the familiar skyline and saw a weapon being armed. On December 5th, a high-pressure weather system and anticyclone stalled directly over the city. It acted like a giant. Impenetrable lid slammed down over the Thames Valley. The winter winds died completely. The temperature plummeted below freezing. Desperate to keep their children warm, millions of families piled more of the toxic nutty slack into their hearts. Simultaneously, massive industrial power plants at Battersea and Bankside shoved thousands of tons of raw, unfiltered exhaust into the atmosphere. Normally, the famous London winds would carry this pollution away toward the sea. But today, the rising hot smoke hit the invisible lid of cold air, cooled rapidly, and fell straight back down. It trapped the pollution against the ground, mixing with the damp moisture of the river. It didn't just become a heavy fog. It chemically mutated into a weapon. By midday, the city was plunged into a premature, terrifying night. The smog was so heavily saturated with industrial soot, tar, and toxic chemicals that it wasn't gray, it was a sickly, heavy yellowish-black. Visibility dropped to less than a single yard. The city's entire transport network paralyzed. Trains collided blindly on the tracks. Cars were simply abandoned in the middle of intersections. Double-decker bus conductors were forced to walk ahead of their vehicles, holding flickering flares, their light completely swallowed by the darkness just 2 feet away. People walking home couldn't see their own hands. It is recorded that pedestrians, completely disoriented in the pitch blackness, simply walked off the edges of the docks. They drowned in the freezing River Thames, their screams completely muffled by the dense, heavy air. If you walked through the streets, your clothes turned black. Your skin became coated in a greasy, acidic film that burned to the touch. And with every single breath, you were inhaling raw sulfuric acid. But the true horror wasn't found in the freezing streets. It was indoors. The smog was so insidious, so incredibly fine, that it seeped right through closed windows and locked doors. Desperate mothers shoved wet rags under door frames, only to watch the cloth turn pitch black in minutes. Movie theaters had to cancel screenings not because of the weather outside, but because audiences couldn't see the screen through the stinging haze inside the auditorium. For the elderly, the very young, and those with weak lungs, their own bedrooms became inescapable gas chambers. Hospitals quickly overflowed. Nurses were forced to navigate the packed wards by touch and by the sound of agonizing coughing. Patients arrived with their lips turned a haunting shade of blue. Their lungs were essentially dissolving from the inside out. As the sulfur dioxide mixed with the natural water in their bodies, it literally turned into acid, burning them from within. The human cost of engineering failures, political negligence, and environmental hubris is often quietly brushed under the rug of history. It takes looking back into the dark to ensure we don't repeat the same fatal mistakes. If you believe these stories need to be told, and you want to support this channel's deep dive into the disasters that shaped our world, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. It is the only way these historical archives keep breathing. But for the people of London in the winter of 1952, the breathing was about to stop entirely. On December 9th, a brisk wind finally swept over the Thames. The yellow-black curtain lifted, revealing a traumatized city, a city that had miraculously survived the Blitz, but had just been brought to its knees by its own chimneys. The political cover-up began almost immediately. The government initially reported 4,000 dead, desperately trying to blame a sudden influenza epidemic. But the undertakers knew the grim truth. They completely ran out of coffins. Florists sold out of mourning wreaths. Modern analysis reveals the true, staggering scale of the massacre. Over 12,000 men, women, and children were killed by the Great Smog, with 100,000 more left permanently disabled, with lifelong respiratory trauma. The tragedy of the Great Smog forced a global reckoning. It shattered the long-held illusion that industrial smoke was simply a harmless symbol of prosperity. For years later, after intense public pressure, the British government passed the Clean Air Act of 1956, fundamentally changing how the entire world viewed urban pollution. Today, the air in London is clear, but the invisible ghosts of 1950 to remain a chilling historical reminder, a reminder of what happens when economic progress outpaces human caution. A reminder that sometimes the most deadly forces on Earth aren't unpredictable acts of God, but the silent monsters we build ourselves. Until the next disaster, stay vigilant.